Hello, remote learners. Today we're going to continue the Jason and the Argonauts story, and we're going to start off by going into detail on the Argos' first stop on their journey, and that is the island of Lemnos. And there are some important things you need to know about Lemnos. The first thing is that it used to have a king. Now this king had a daughter whose name was Hypsipyle. That's Hyphypyle. So sorry, Hyp Hip Sipyle. Hypsipyle. So Hypsipyle was very beautiful, and this king thought she was so beautiful that he started bragging about her, and he said that she was more beautiful than the goddess Aphrodite. Now, if you know anything about Greek myth, that's not a very smart thing to do at all, and here's why. Aphrodite gets very mad very easily, especially when someone says anything or anyone is more beautiful than she is. And so, she curses the entire island of Lemnos. Now this is kind of scary, but what she does is, first, she makes all the women on the island stink really, really, really bad. So she curses them with a stench. And then the second thing is much worse. Every time a woman of Lemnos sees a male, she has the overwhelming desire to eat them. Very scary stuff. So the women of Lemnos become cannibals, and they end up eating all the men on the island. And Hypsipyle becomes the queen for obvious reasons. And so they live that way for about a year. The Argonauts have no idea about this island, and when they stop there, they think that everything should be fine. Now they know they could always run into trouble, so they leave Hercules with the ship alone. But if you're going to leave anybody with the ship alone to protect it, Hercules is probably your best bet. He can pretty much handle things by himself. And the rest of the Argonauts, so 49 of them, go off into the island in search of food and other things. Eventually, they find a city, and they see that the city is populated only by women. So they go into the city, and they're met by Queen Hypsipyle, who offers them a chance to stay for dinner. The Argonauts say that's a fantastic idea. They're hungry, and they would love to stay. And they told each other they would remember to save some stuff to bring back to Hercules. So back on the ship, Hercules is getting really bored. He's kind of a man of action. He doesn't like waiting around, and so he looks up, looks around, and says, I don't see anybody. I don't think anybody will come get the ship. And so he leaves in search of the other Argonauts. And the Argonauts have been waiting for dinner, and then Queen Hypsipyle comes back, and she says, hey Argonauts, follow me. Dinner is this way. So they follow her into what looks like a dining hall, but when they look around and look more and more, it kind of looks like a butcher shop. They wonder why it looks like a butcher shop, but then they think this might just be one of those restaurants where they prepare the food in front of you, so all's good. Then Queen Hypsipyle asks them to sit down, make themselves comfortable, and when they do, the chairs fold around them and trap them, and they can't get out. So they're stuck and being held captive by the chairs, and the Argonauts, of course, raise an objection to this. They say, what's going on? Who do you think you are? This is crazy. And of course, they're like, you invited us for dinner. You're not being very nice. And Queen Hypsipyle says, of course I invited you for dinner. You are the dinner. And all the women of Lemnos start sharpening their knives. And then the Argonauts start crying. Yes, all the Argonauts start crying. But, of course, anybody would cry in their situation. They're about to be eaten by cannibal women. It's a very scary thing. Then, as the women are just about to cut into the first Argonaut, again, this is very scary stuff, Hercules busts through the door and says, "What on earth is going on here?" All the women rush at him, but he simply picks up a table and pins them against the wall. Remember, he's the strongest man to have ever lived, and he holds them back with one hand, and then he sees all the Argonauts crying, points at them and laughs at them, and makes fun of them for crying, which is not very nice. Then the Argonauts say, yes, it's all very funny, now free us from these chairs, and so he does. And then he looks at the women and says, you women are not very nice. And so he brings the whole building down on top of them. Yes. So he frees the Argonauts, and then he crushes, or not really crushes, but he makes the building fall on top of them, the women of Lemnos. But as Hercules is leaving, he looks back at the rubble, and he sees some of the rubble moving, and he's like, oh no, I guess they survived. But out pops several wolves. So the Lemnian women actually are the first werewolves. Fun fact. And that's the first stop of the Argonauts. Not a very successful one, if you ask me. Not very successful. And they had to be saved by Hercules. The second stop doesn't go much better. They sail around for a bit, and they eventually land on the island of Gantua. That's Gantua, Gantua. And the island of Gantua is inhabited by two different people groups. The Dolonoi, which is Dolonoi, and the Gigantes, that's Gigantes. The Dolonoi and the Gigantes. The Dolonoi are really awesome, really nice people. They like to party, they like to have fun, they love travelers. That's the kind of people the Greeks would love to run into. The other people, the Gigantes, as you've probably guessed from their name and the name of the island, are giants. They're giants, and each one of the giants have 6 arms. So 3 arms on one side, 3 arms on the other side. They're really scary people. And they hate the Dolonoi. So the Dolonoi and the Gigantes have been fighting over the island for years. There's about 5,000 Dolonoi and about 50 to 60 Gigantes. Now, the Gigantes, you must remember, are giants and they have 6 arms, so it's about an evenly matched fight. The Argonauts land on the Dolonoi side of the island, and they are met by King Cyzicus. That's Cyzicas or Cyzicas, King Cyzicus. And he welcomes them, and he says, hey, you guys are cool, let's have a party. And so they do, they have a big feast, and then King Cyzicus starts telling them about the Gigantes and how evil they are, and how bad they are, and how they've been fighting for a long time. And so the Argonauts say, well, you guys seem really nice, we'll help you kill the Gigantes. Of course, like any rational person would think. While this is all happening, the giants hear all of this partying going on, and so they come out of the woods and they look and they see that the Dolonoi have some new friends. Now the Gigantes have a king as well. His name is King Oropus. That's Oropus. Oropus. King Oropus. And being a giant king, he has 3 magical powers, of course. King Oropus can cause fog to come over the island. He can shapeshift himself and other people. And he can make people hallucinate and see things. 3 pretty important powers and powerful powers if you're a king. Especially a king of giants. And so King Oropus, he assumes that the Dolonoi and their new friends are going to try to kill him and the rest of the Gigantes. So he comes up with a plan. He gathers all the Gigantes to him, all the giants, and he transfigures them and himself to look like the Dolonoi. So now the Gigantes look like the Dolonoi. And now that the Gigantes look like the Dolonoi, he makes fog come down over the island. Once he's done that, the Dolonoi know that King Oropus has this power, so the Dolonoi, they get out and they say the giants must be attacking soon, everybody to arms, and they come out of the city. And when they come out of the city, the Dolonoi make the Argonauts hallucinate and think that all of the Dolonoi are actually the Gigantes. So now the Argonauts, when they look at the Dolonoi, they see the Gigantes. And when the Argonauts look at the actual Gigantes, they're actually looking at shape-shifted Gigantes that look like the Dolonoi. So the Argonauts are a little mixed up. And so a whole bunch of fighting happens. The Argonauts end up killing as many Gigantes as they can see. And when it's all said and done, the fog lifts, and the spell is broken, and the Argonauts realize that they've actually just killed all the Dolonoi. Isn't that so sad? They feel so bad, so they start burying the Dolonoi. And when they're burying the Dolonoi, they hear lots and lots and lots of laughing. And they look up, and they see the giants laughing and pointing at them, standing on a hill, saying, "Oh, we tricked you, we made you kill the Dolonoi, ha ha ha." And this makes Hercules so angry. And remember, he's the strongest man to have ever lived, that he breaks off a piece of the island and he throws it at the Gigantes. He crushes the Gigantes. They all die. And that's it. So Hercules has made a lagoon in the island and a mountain on the island. And the Argonauts are responsible for killing every single person that lived on the island. And so they take what food they can and they leave. Another very unsuccessful and not very productive stop. So the first 2 stops of the Argonauts show how badly things are going for them so far, and that Hercules is saving their butts again and again and again. Now the next stop they take will end up being one of the worst things that could have possibly happened to the Argonauts. So, Hercules is really strong. I think we've established that. And because he's so strong, he keeps breaking his oars. Remember, he broke his first oar during one of the rowing competitions. And because he's so strong, he keeps breaking them. And eventually they run out of spare oars. So they have to stop on an island so Hercules can go chop down a tree and make a few new oars. On this stop, Hercules and his little cousin, who's one of the Argonauts, and his name is Hylas, get off of the Argo and they go into the woods and search for the perfect tree to chop down. Eventually, Hercules and Hylas get separated, and Hylas begins to get kind of thirsty. So Hylas is walking around the woods alone, and eventually he finds a pool of water. So he bends down, he starts to drink. When he looks into the pool, he sees someone staring back at him, a beautiful woman. Now, Hylas is kind of startled, so he stumbles back and the woman comes halfway out of the puddle. The woman says, "Hello." Hylas says, "Hello" back. Hylas says, "I didn't see you there. I'm so sorry. I was drinking out of your pool." And the woman says, "It's no big deal. I'm a nymph." And a nymph is just a nature spirit. And the nymph says, "Hylas, I think you're very handsome." And Hylas says, "Well, thank you so much." And then the nymph asks, "Well, Hylas, do you think I'm beautiful?" And Hylas says, "Yes, you're very beautiful." And then the nymph says, "Well, would you like a kiss?" Which Hylas responds, "Yes, of course." And so as Hylas is leaning in for a kiss, the nymph wraps her arms around his neck and pulls him into the pond. And Hylas is never seen again. So Hylas got kidnapped by a nymph. And Hercules doesn't know any of this. Hylas was there at one point, and now he's gone. And so he gets really, really, really angry. And when Hercules gets really angry, he starts destroying stuff. The Argonauts see Hercules getting really angry and destroying the island and knocking trees down with a kick and ripping up parts of the island and throwing them into the sea. And he says, and the Argonauts, particularly Jason, says, "Well, I don't think Hercules is going to calm down anytime soon. We probably are just going to have to leave him here." And so the Argonauts pack up the ship and leave Hercules on the island. Now, eventually, Hercules will get off the island. Another ship will come by, and he'll get on there after he's calmed down. But he never rejoins with the Argonauts. And so the Argonauts lose the hero who has helped them in their first two stops, and really, they would not have gotten through their first two stops without Hercules. So now things might be a bit harder. And so they leave Hercules on the island and set sail again. Their next stop is really interesting. It's one of the more interesting things that occurs. They're sailing in the middle of the ocean and they see a large tower just right in the middle of the ocean. And so, of course, they say, "Let's get out, let's investigate." So they dock at the tower and they go up the tower to the roof. Now on the roof, they see lots of tables with lots of food and lots of drinks, and it looks like somebody's about to have a big feast. But there's only one old, very, very thin man sitting at one of the tables. And so the Argonauts keep themselves hidden, and they wait to see what's about to happen. The old man looks up, he looks around, and he quickly, as quick as he can, reaches for some food on the table. As soon as his hand comes out, there's loud screeching noises from the sky, and two giant harpies fly down. Now, a harpy is just a giant bird with a woman's head, but they're not nice at all. They bite you, they scratch you, they beat you up, and it's just no fun for anybody. So they beat up Phineas, they destroy the food on the tables, and then they fly away. Once that happens, the Argonauts come out and they say to the old man, "What on earth just happened?" And then the old man tells the Argonauts his name. The old man says, "My name's Phineas. I have the gift of prophecy, and my gift of prophecy is so strong that Zeus did not want me advising the mortals and telling them the future, so he imprisoned me here. But that wasn't all he did to punish me. I cannot eat and I cannot drink, but all of this food is around me. I also cannot die. So I'm forever hungry and forever thirsty, and whenever I try to eat or drink anything, those two harpies come down and beat me up." So the Argonauts say, "We don't think that's really fair. We don't like that. We'll help you kill the harpies." And so remember the two Argonauts that can fly, the sons of Boreas, the north wind, Zetes and Callias, say, "Here's what's going to happen. You are going to reach for some food. The harpies will come down, but we'll meet the harpies in the air. We'll wrap them in a net, and we'll kill them." Phineas says, "That sounds like a great idea. I think it might work." And so that's exactly what happens. Phineas reaches for the food, the harpies come down, Zetes and Callias meet them in the air, wrap them in a net, and kill them. But this makes Zeus angry because he did not want the punishment to end, and so he snaps his fingers, sings a little song, and teleports Zetes and Callias all the way back to their father, all the way in the farthest reaches of the north. So the Argonauts have not only lost Hercules, they've lost the two Argonauts with the ability to fly as well, Zetes and Callias. But Phineas is saved from the torment of the harpies, and he's able to eat and drink. And so all the Argonauts sit down with him, and they eat and drink. Phineas warns them about the next thing that's ahead. In order to get into the Black Sea where Colchis is, you have to go through the clashing rocks. And Phineas warns them about the clashing rocks. Jason says thank you, and after they are done eating, they get back on the Argo and they set sail again. And so the last thing we'll talk about today is the Argonauts going through the clashing rocks. The Argonauts get to the clashing rocks, and Jason and the Argonauts watch a bird try to fly through. The bird is immediately crushed by the two rocks clashing together. So the rocks can move, and they crush things that try to go between them. Now this really freaks Jason out, and he remembers that thing that happened long ago next to the river where Hera said, "If you ask for help, I will give it to you." The fact that Jason is just now remembering this is kind of scary. He should have remembered this a long time ago. So he prays to Hera and he asks for help, and Hera appears on the ship, and she says, "Ah, Jason, I was wondering when you would ask me for help. It seems like you need help getting through the clashing rocks. Unfortunately, I can't actually stop the rocks from clashing because they were put there by Poseidon, the god of the ocean and the seas, and so I cannot override his power. However, I can slow them down. So, when you see a bird fly through unscathed, that is your sign that it's safe to go through." And so Jason says, "Okay, that sounds great." And then Hera disappears. Jason and the Argonauts see one bird fly through, gets crushed. Another bird try to fly through, almost makes it, but gets crushed. And then they see a third bird. It flies through, it makes it through, but the very back tail feathers get crushed from on the bird. But the bird makes it through with crushed back tail feathers. So, Jason thinks that because the bird made it through, this is the sign that it is time to go. And so they start going through the clashing rocks. They think they're gonna make it, and then the rocks start closing in faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster until they're almost out, but the very back part of the ship gets crushed. The very back part of the ship gets crushed. So now there's a huge hole in the back of the ship. So Jason once again prays to Hera and says, Hera, we need some help. And so what Hera does is she goes all the way down to the ocean floor and she finds Poseidon's son. Now, no, I'm not talking about Percy Jackson, for those of you who know the Percy Jackson series. But think really hard. Who is Poseidon's son? Who is Poseidon's son in Greek mythology? One that's associated with him and being under the ocean. Think maybe Little Mermaid. Yes, Triton. Triton is his son. Triton is the son of Poseidon. And Hera goes to Triton and says, Triton, I need your help. And Triton says, hello, your highness. What can I help you with? And Hera says, you see that ship up there? Triton says, oh yeah, that one that's sinking. That's unfortunate, I see it. Hera says, my favorite mortal is on that ship. I can't let it sink. And Triton says, well, what do you need me to do? And Hera says, if you could just go up there, pick up the ship and take it to dry land, that would be great. Triton says, I can, of course, do that, but what's in it for me? In which Hera responds, if you do this favor for me, I will let you marry one of my daughters. Triton says, that's a good enough deal for me, and so he swims up, picks up the Argo, and takes it to dry land, where the Argonauts are able to patch the hole, but now that it's patched with regular wood and stuff, the Argo is now not as fast or as great or as magical as it once was, which is really unfortunate. So that's where we will leave off today. Hopefully you're enjoying Jason and the Argonauts. I know I do. It's one of my more favorite myths. Remember, take notes. You will have a quiz on this myth. So everybody, have a great weekend, and I'll see you next video.